So there's my Train Simulator 2009, or Trainz Simulator 2009 box, the Czech edition. And we're going to take a look at Surveyor here, which is the route editor in Auran Trainz. I've done other videos about this actually, but I have chosen to take a look at the Queensland route, which I don't know how authentic this route is, but it's based on the Queensland Railway in Australia. And I want to look at it because it's the route that I'm going to play through in the next video. So there's the 2100 class you saw in the last video, which will be also in part 3. This is the intro scenario. Apparently there are a lot of other scenarios that you can download off the Auran Trainz download station, which is where you can get a large portion of the content, although not all actually. So here I'm getting it ready. There's the progress bar. And there is the Queensland Railway as interpreted by Auran. And that red stripe, I fiddle around with it a bit to figure out what it is. That is actually an invisible track that seems to have something to do with the signaling system. I wanted to figure out what it was though, because I had never seen it before in the other track layouts. One of the things that was improved in the latest service pack, I believe service pack 3 or 4 for 2009, was that those roads with the built-in traffic became much better implemented. The cars don't flicker so much anymore. Here I'm showing you how you can add a track mark, which can be used for scenarios. I'm deleting it here though because I don't want to change the built-in route. And you can also see some speed signs there for kilometers per hour. Queensland Railway style. There don't appear to be any advanced speed signs on this route, which I don't like very much. It makes it much harder to drive it when you're not experienced. But the green T thing there is a trigger, so it's similar to a track marker. And again, it's used for scenarios, so different things happen when you pass over it. Either another train starts its route, or a bit gets set, something. There is a lot of depth to what you can do with scenarios in Auran Trainz. It's one of the nicest things about it, along with this Surveyor program to edit routes, which I think is incalculably better than what's available for Microsoft Train Simulator in its original form. See, it's very easy to navigate. Basically, the right click of the mouse dragged along, push the mouse forward, push it back. It's not perfect, but it's very good. And you also have a map view, overhead map view. This can be used to fast forward to a particular place, as I'm doing here. Again, right-clicking. It also can be called up with the M key when you're driving, so that you have some idea where you are on the route. So there's the train that I'll be driving in the playthrough. Not 100% realistic by modern standards, because most of the passenger trains on the Queensland Railway today are electrics, or EMUs for that matter, not diesel locomotive haul. But I'm going to gloss over that here. So here you can see I'm going to the next town. And yet another one. There's a crossing. There's a tunnel. All of this is kind of obvious. This route is generally pretty well done. It's obviously one of the older ones. I don't know exactly which version of Trainz this was released with, but I like it. I'm actually going further here than I'm going to do in the playthrough because the intro scenario is very short. This is basically where you stop, if memory serves. Actually, I think you stop even earlier because this freight train advances to meet you. Those two tank cars there are actually American, not Australian. But again, I'm going to gloss over that here. We don't have time to talk about it. So these Australian-style gondolas full of coal are kind of interesting. Sometimes the consists that you can add automatically to save time have mix-ups of European and American or Australian and American equipment. But you can edit those out. There's a brake van, or caboose as Americans would call it. And zooming down to the end of the line here, and you can see one last relatively urban-looking station, even though really none of this route is urban. Some Australian-style, what looked like stock cars there on another freight train. Then you notice the scenery gets really sparse, and oh, there's the end of the line. But the reason that's not a problem is you don't actually drive to the end of the line in any of the scenarios I know of for this route. So you never run into a problem with running off the track or anything. They could have put this merging truck a little further back, I think, though. The car models in the last version of 2009 Final Service Pack are largely non-authentic, maybe because they were worried about licensing issues. When 2009 originally came out, they had mostly authentic models of cars and trucks. But you can download authentic models of cars and trucks. I may eventually release my own Chevy Vega model, although the Vega I don't think was ever sold in Australia. And here you see some American prototype Wild West buildings, which are not, or maybe post-Wild West buildings, which are not actually completely unauthentic for Australia because in terms of architecture and their 19th century cultures during the steam era, America and Australia were strikingly similar. I recommend the TV show 5 Mile Creek as sort of a Western set in Australia and not in the West. It's a very interesting example. So anyway, on to the playthrough.